Hey guys, so digital marketing is a growing space. Obviously it's been growing for ages, but with COVID, it's kind of exploded and a lot of people just want to become a digital marketer. As a digital marketing manager for previous companies in APAC roles, as well as just marketing program managers focusing on digital for tech companies, I can give you some insights on how to prepare your interview, especially because not only have I interviewed, but I've done the interviews as well. So hopefully this will help you ace that next interview. This will depend on what stage of the career you're at, but I'm really focusing on people fresh out of university, people who might be in a manager or lower level, just because, I'm not, a CEO or CMO yet, so maybe I can give you some insights when I become one of them. Alright, so let's go straight to the video. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you like this type of content. So let's go straight into it. Okay. So I'm not going to go through general questions. They'll definitely ask you questions like why you want to work for the company, why you think this role is suitable for you. They'll ask you those type of questions, but I think you're probably watching this video because you're looking for more digital marketing specific questions. Now, the first question they're definitely going to ask you, I'm doing this on a whiteboard by the way, hopefully this is okay, is they'll ask you about your marketing campaigns. So, this is a very badly, I'm doing this on a mouse by the way. Hopefully you can read it. If you don't like this, let me know in the comments. But I thought you'd be better to kind of read something than just look at my face for the entire video. So number one is marketing campaigns. They'll ask you an example of a marketing campaign you executed from end to end. And they want to see exactly how you thought about creating that marketing campaign and the outcome of it, right? What you thought would be the outcome, and maybe just the results could be completely different. It's not bad to give a negative experience, but normally you want to give something that showcases your kind of expertise, because I'll get to the second part, which is they'll probably ask you a question around why a campaign failed. But going on to question one, so the way to approach this is, although you can approach it with a STAR method, which is obvious, but because you probably already know that, I'm going to explain to you how I want a candidate, for example, to approach this question. I want to see how they thought about a situation. For example, they received $5,000 budget in order to do a specific webinar, and how they maximize that budget in order to create as the most amount of result possible, right? So as a B2B marketer, you're trying to get pipeline. As a B2C marketer, you're probably trying to get sales or conversions. So it depends on how you look at it. But it could also be, for example, if you're trying to get emails or you're trying to get an early access list, there could be a lot of ways, but you have to explain that, right? You have to explain the mentality of why you're doing that. And I want to see that how the person explains it, and how in depth and how much detail they kind of like approach the situation, and how many hats they put on. Maybe they had to go through operations, they had to do finance, they had to do everything. And I want to see that detail because that's what's important to me. I want to see how they thought about, how they articulated the campaign, and the result doesn't really matter as much as the hypothesis they put together, because in the end things can change and not all marketing experiments or marketing campaigns will work. So it's important that the whole step from end to end is important, and don't focus on the result as much. If you're going to be talking about the results and like, oh, you made the business millions of dollars, but you never explained the first part of it, then I didn't give a crap, honestly. I'm trying to understand how you approach the situation, because I want to see how you approach as a digital marketer that campaign, and that's what I'm looking for. Now, as I alluded to before, number two is some kind of fail. Now, this won't always be asked, but when I've done interviews, I guess 50% of the time I get asked this question. What's a campaign that has kind of approached, you've kind of thought about, you hypothesized, and you experimented? So a lot of times you're going to get a lot of experimentation questions because, a digital marketer has to do experiments. And you're going to have to give kind of a hypothesis of why a campaign did this and why it failed. Because they want to see, like question one, how you approach the situation, but what went wrong, right? Like what went wrong. And for example, I'll give you an example for me personally. We had an influencer campaign that we did, and the fail about that campaign was we didn't approach branding from global in order to get the sign off properly. Now it sounds really dumb, but a lot of times people can relate because branding can be the marketing police in the organization, and I did explain that we did go through branding, but a lot of the times at the end there was one person that stopped the whole thing and we didn't ask that one person. So that's about being thorough, right? But that was an example that the director at that time liked. She kind of like understood what I meant, and that was the example that she was happy with. So a lot of times you'll be asked a question about some kind of fail. So don't think about all the positives. Don't prepare just all the positives. Prepare one about like what's something that went wrong, but at least you can back it up. Like you had an hypothesis and you were trying to prove it, and although it didn't work just because of a tiny thing, you at least learned from it, and you can basically replicate it next time successfully. So you want to think about it that way. Okay, so number 3, you're probably going to be asked what tools you used and your kind of expertise around them. Okay, so obviously as a digital marketer, you need to be able to execute specific tools. So if you don't know or don't have any expertise, start doing it. Start doing it now, right? So as a B2B marketer, you're gonna have things like, as well as a B2C marketer, honestly, some kind of email tool. So, for example, HubSpot, Marketo, or even something like MailChimp, honestly, all the way to a CRM. So Salesforce, HubSpot again. So these are the 2 kind of bread and butters you have. And then you have other tools depending on where you work in an organization. You might have Google Analytics, you might have Amplitude, you might have all those kind of like website analytic tools like AEM as well. And you need to understand if that's relevant to the role. Normally you can check in the job description, but it's sometimes essential to have those experiences as well. But a lot of the times you want to get a list of tools you have and understand what you've used them for. So for example, if for Marketo, which is an email tool, I have to basically explain that, I've done the execution work on it. If you haven't, then you might need to do it, depending on the role. Once again, it depends on the role. But as I've said to a lot of digital marketers out there, especially the early ones, do all the execution work early in your career, because it will give you a huge advantage as you go on. Because a lot of the times, especially if you want to work for smaller companies or startups, they require you have some kind of execution knowledge, because they prefer someone who has both leadership as well as execution, because that's like a more complete marketer versus someone that can just do the talking but can't do the walking, right? So the point of this is just to get an expert understanding of the tools you use. They'll probably just ask you and then how you use them. So just make sure you have that in your mind as you're approaching the question, so you don't have a mind blank about the tools that you might have used but you didn't mention, and then you're going to kick yourself afterwards because you could have gone, oh, I actually did use that tool and they wanted that tool, right? Or that type of tool. Okay, so 4th, you're going to get a question around KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators. Now, the reason why KPIs, are a specific question that they might ask you is they want to see how you've approached a target and how you went above or maybe below it, and you need to have a reason for both, either way. Now, you might be asking, or you might be kind of worried here, and you go, oh crap, I've never had a KPI before. And that's okay. The reason is because there's a way to approach it. If I've never had a KPI, for example, I could simply say that, my company, we never had a set KPI. However, I still had a set KPI that I set for myself and my manager that we both organized, that we would hit, for example, 100 leads per a quarter. And for example, I managed to hit 110, so I actually hit 110% of my KPI. And then you explain how you've done it, and then you explain the methodology of how you approached it, right? Because they want to see you're a high achiever, obviously, and if you're not a high achiever or you might go below it, you have to explain why, and that's just how it is, right? But hopefully you've gone above it. And obviously KPIs can be a lot of things as well, especially if you're an entry-level job. Your KPIs don't need to be around those figures. My first KPIs were about increasing a social media account because I was doing a social media content kind of internship by 50% after the year end, because it was a 1-year internship. And I managed to do that, right? And I wrote down my resume, and I still talk about it during the early stages of my career, right? And that's okay, because that's showing that you've overachieved and you had a KPI, you had a target, right? Because businesses have goals and outcomes they want to achieve, and they want to see employees that can do that as well. Okay, and number 5 is how you work collaboratively with external stakeholders or internal. Man, that writing is not well. Hopefully you can read it. If not, at least you can hear my voice. So collaboration with external and internal. The reason why this is important is, as a digital marketer, you're working with a lot of teams. So for example, for me, I work with sales, I work with other marketers, I work with agencies, I work with internal operations, HR, even like occasionally if you need to do some kind of like job ads and stuff like that. You have so many things you have so many stakeholders that you're managing, right? So they're going to be asking questions around how you organize your stakeholder management and how you do it, right? So it's important for you to get on top of what stakeholders you've had, especially because some roles might want you to have specific experiences with certain stakeholders. So a lot of digital marketing roles want you to have experience with agencies because as a digital marketer, you probably have to work with agencies. For more global roles, they probably might have asked your experience around working with other marketers or other digital marketers across regions. So you need to you need to understand how you work with stakeholders and have examples ready based off that as well. So it's pretty straightforward. It's more of a FYI to you that they'll probably ask you this question. Okay, so that's it. Smiley face. That's all. So a lot of other questions you'll probably get around why you want to work for the company, etc. Name a strength, stuff like that. Pretty common as well. Hopefully you don't hear those questions as much because I don't like them personally. But hopefully this helps you. I think digital marketing, a lot of the times they'll want to see your experience based off the campaigns you've executed, as well as just your focus around data, even like your KPIs, for example, as I've mentioned. So hopefully you ace that interview. If any other questions you have, I'm going to be doing a series around tech companies, especially around interviews in Google and Amazon, which I've all done and I've received job offers for but rejected. And other tech companies which I'm currently working for on my LinkedIn. You can check it out. So every tech company is very different. For example, an interview I did at Google is vastly different to an interview I did at Amazon. It's really different. There is an NDA attached to specific things, but I can still talk about the things they've asked around as long as I don't reveal the questions. So yeah, hopefully that's interesting to you. I'll be releasing that video soon. So yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment if you have any other questions. Thanks.